This is Flipping Junkie Podcast, episode 52. Welcome to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 52 of the Flipping Junkie Podcast. I can't believe we've already had this many episodes. Things are just getting started too, because we've been doing the series, basically like a training series every week. We started with mindset, motivation, getting you to where you need to be for yourself. You got to grow yourself to become the person required to succeed and to be able to build your own business and achieve financial freedom. So we started with that, and then we got into funding, because obviously you'll need to find a way to either wholesale or get some private lenders, hard money lenders, or JV partners to be able to buy houses to fix and flip. And then we've been talking for the last several months about marketing, finding deals, getting great deals. So as a real estate investor, you need to generate leads so that you can get some deals and make money. So we've been talking about all of that. And we talked a whole lot about direct mail, because that's really what most very successful investors are using to generate a lot of leads. And I want to split everything, because right now, I want to transition into doing online, because that's the other side of it. And I generate most of my leads online, and I know a lot of other people are also generating leads online. And I feel like the conversion rates are a lot higher with leads that come from online as opposed to direct mail. And so we'll be getting into a whole series of generating leads online through this podcast. So be sure to subscribe on iTunes and listen in for these new episodes coming up. And today I wanted to just have a short, quick episode, a fun one. It was one, I had posted something on Bigger Pockets a long time ago. I think it was 5 years ago. And it was basically, like the Jeff Foxworthy jokes about you might be a redneck if, and then it gives different things that show that you would probably be a redneck. So for instance, you might be a redneck if you think loading the dishwasher means getting your wife drunk. You might be a redneck if you own a homemade fur coat. These are good. But you might be a redneck if you think a chainsaw is a musical instrument. And you also might be a redneck if you read the Auto Trader with a highlight pen. So I wanted to do something along those lines for real estate investors. And, most other real estate investors I know get a kick out of all these kind of things, because they, it's what we all experience, and sort of creates a special bond between us because we understand it. If you find yourself nodding and laughing at the following truisms, you just might be a real estate investor. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into this list of, before I do that, I'm also going to mention that I will have a post on Facebook, on the Flipping Junkie Facebook page, which is facebook.com/FlippingJunkie. And I encourage you to go there and post other you might be a real estate investor if statements into that group, so that we can share and grow this list and have something to laugh at whenever things get hard and tough, and we just need a laugh and something to motivate us. So if you would, go to the facebook.com/FlippingJunkie and check out that post for you might be a real estate investor if, and please add your comments, and let's vote these up too. If you like them, some of the ones that have been posted, go ahead and like those, and let's see who can get the highest number of likes on a comment of this. So let's get into this list. You'll also be able to find this list that I'm going over on the podcast on the show notes page at flippingjunkie.com/52. All right, so you might be a real estate investor if you have 1,000 keys and you have no idea which house they belong to. Oh man, this is just almost every day I'm finding a pile of keys somewhere and I have no idea what they go to. All right, you might be a real estate investor if you buy every directional sign and stock at Home Depot, then go to another Home Depot and buy their stock. I constantly wonder why they just don't have enough of those things in stock. All right, you might be a real estate investor if you are proud of your lockbox collection. I think once you start to get to the point where you've got 20 lockboxes, you're doing really well. You might be a real estate investor if you happily sit on urine-stained couches. It might sound kind of gross, but I think if you done this for any amount of time, you've probably sat on those couches to talk with sellers. And, cheers to Rob Caldwell for that one. That's one of the responses in I think back on the Bigger Pockets post a long time ago that we had, that he added that one. So got a big kick out of it. All right, you might be a real estate investor if you will jump up from the dinner table to answer your phone because you don't want to miss a deal. It seems like always get a call in the evening when you're taking motivated seller calls. If you haven't delegated this out to someone that you hire to handle this stuff for you, know what I'm talking about. It's you get all calls all day long. You never know which one's going to be the super motivated seller that's going to want to sell their house for an awesome price right away. And so you have to answer all the calls because you don't want to miss that one and have it go to your competition. And so you just have to do those things. But you might be a real estate investor if you understand Ron LeGrand on a deeper level when he says, don't go driving through a war zone in your fancy car wearing lots of jewelry. War zones are dangerous. Don't do it. You might be a real estate investor if you get excited by the sight of feces on the floor throughout a house. I don't know how many times I've seen this, and I'm always blown away. And you see some of it's probably 10 years old, some's 5 years old, and some's a week old. It blows my mind. You also see dirty skivvies from time to time. That's always interesting. All right. You might be a real estate investor if you've done the shake it all about hokey pokey dance all over the street trying to get rid of all the fleas that are on you. I remember this one time I looked at a property and I was just in the driveway on the side of the house for, maybe 30 seconds. And I walked back to the front of the house and I kid you not, I had probably thousands of fleas on my pant legs. It was unbelievable. Needless to say, I did not go inside that house. All right, so you might be a real estate investor if you know exactly what is meant by being embarrassed by your offer. That one, yeah. You understand what it's like when you have a great conversation going with sellers and then you make your offer and everything completely changes. Awkward silence. Nobody speaks for a couple minutes and it gets pretty interesting. So, all right, you might be a real estate investor if you just have to see the inside of that REO, don't want to bother the agent, and decide that you and your wife need to crawl through a window only to have 3 police cars swarm the front of the house within just 2 or 3 minutes and have a neighbor using his dually to block the escape down the alleyway. Yeah, that happened to Melissa and I. Thank God we knew the agent and had it resolved. I just couldn't believe it, though. 3 police cars swarm, into the front yard of this house even. It's not like they even stopped in the street. They, drove up into the, the front yard of this house. It was crazy. But I guess we looked pretty dangerous. I'm not sure. If you've seen pictures of us, if you haven't, you go to Instagram.com/FlippingJunkie. We post pictures of things that we're doing. I don't think we look that scary. All right, real estate investor. You might be a real estate investor if the top 5 people called on your phone are your wife, followed by nothing but contractors. That's embarrassing. All right, if you're a real estate investor, you might be a real estate investor if you have more pictures of nasty houses than family and friends in your phone. It's another dead giveaway. You might be a real estate investor if you've nearly run over people and hit parked cars because you craned your neck just to get the address of a house you passed. Yeah, Melissa's got great stories about me almost running over people, but we won't need to get into that. All right. You might be a real estate investor if you no longer consider so-so neighborhoods dangerous because you've seen the furthest end of the spectrum, the true war zone. You might be a real estate investor if your kids tell you you are obsessed with houses. Ours actually said that we were absessed, I think. No, we were assessed, which is even funnier because, the tax assessor, whatever. All right. You might be a real estate investor if your kids say they don't want to go and look at any more houses every time you leave the house together. They got to the point where they thought that every time we left the house, we were going to look at houses. And they weren't very happy about it. You might be a real estate investor if you laugh when someone tells you their house doesn't need any repairs or updating while talking to them on the phone. You might be a real estate investor if you can't help but look at the ceilings and walls looking for mistakes at friends and family members' houses when you visit them. Yeah, this one happens to all of us. If you check on rehabs, at any point, you get to the point where you're really kind of looking at everything, baseboards, crown molding, the ceilings, looking for imperfections in the drywall and the texture and the paint, all that kind of stuff. It just becomes a sort of an obsession. If you might be a real estate investor if you're constantly surprised at how some people can live. Yeah, that one's kind of sad, but it's true. All right, you might be a real estate investor if you've seen a toilet that you wouldn't want to get within 10 feet of daily. You might be a real estate investor if you will do anything to not have to replace the cabinets. Some of you might not get that, but we'll go extraordinary lengths to not have to replace cabinets sometimes, just because sometimes we're cheap like that. All right, you might be a real estate investor if you can spend an hour debating between two faucets at Home Depot, but will decide to buy a house within 5 minutes. This one's definitely true for me. I have a really tough time with small decisions, and buying houses is something that I can decide on very quickly. You might be a real estate investor if you're still listening to this podcast and look forward to seeing what other investors have to add. So if you're still listening, and maybe if you've gone and subscribed on iTunes and left a rating and review, that could mean that you're truly a real estate investor, or going to be very soon. Anyway, if you would, check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/FlippingJunkie, and I'll have a post on there for you might be a real estate investor if, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Want to get some communication going between us. I'm always talking. A lot of times I don't get to hear you guys. People email me all the time, but Facebook's a good place for it, and I'll be sure to check in on there and respond. And looking forward to check out what everybody has to say. So anyway, we'll get back into the marketing side of things on the next podcast and next week, and we'll be getting probably in 2 weeks or so. I think we'll be starting on the internet marketing for leads, which is the way everything's moving. So you'll be sure to want to listen to that, subscribe on iTunes, and have a great week.